All right, good morning, make sure to give. I'm gonna be doing a discussion over, I know I agree for the USS Texas, but I'm also gonna do the USS New York just because it was the only two ships that was actually created. So it was they were the New York class super dreadnoughts that was created, started in 1911, finished in 1914. So only two of these ships were ever made. It's kind of supersedes the battleship classes that become more popular later on. So just interesting facts about this. The very first conflict it was actually involved in was the occupation of Veracruz in Mexico. Didn't really see any combat. Later on, it was involved in World War I. However, it was only really used as an escort ship, so again, didn't really see any combat. For the next couple of decades or so, it went over a lot of retrofitting, so they improved its armor, improved its weapons, they added a catapult to the aircraft as well, so it had small aircraft that could launch from the vessel and do reconnaissance, also just let the ship know that like they did hit their targets accurately. So that was also very beneficial. So a couple of decades went by and it was involved during World War II. So one of the very first battleships that was actually involved in two separate wars, which is not very well known. So the very first operation that it was involved in was Operation Torch. It was in the northern part of Africa. They had some little engagements there, nothing too large. The really big ones occurred during Operation Overlord. Operation Overlord, if anyone does not know, was D-Day. So they were able to provide supportive fire, and during that engagement alone, they sustained fire for 38 minutes. Now, to kind of put that into perspective, these are the largest guns around the time. This is one of the ships with the most advanced systems, even though they had the Iowa class around, the Yamato class around, then also the German battleships were around as well. Now, those 408,000 rounds that were laid down, they were averaging about 7-8 shots per minute. That was about 258 rounds, so imagine a round by the size of a 2022 Volvo sedan just being hurled from this battleship onto its location, just getting obliterated. After all this ammunition was expended, the USS Texas went back, refitted, and came back to provide fire support. The issue was that they were too far away to provide support at the original 15,000 yards, so they came 3,000 range from the coastline and still out of range. So what they did is that they flooded the starboard side of the ship, raised the guns additional 2 degrees so they can rain fire support on the enemy and provide support. It's also one of the very few battleships that's actually been in all fronts during World War II. They were able to go over to the Pacific as well and provide support for Iwo Jima and Okinawa. So it was a very active ship at the time. The USS New York was also involved, but this is where things kind of split away. At the end of the 40s, both of the ships retired. The New York was actually used for Operation Crossroads. That's when they were exploding nuclear bombs in the Bikini Islands to see what the effects would be on the ships. So the ship survived. It was taken to Hawaii, studied for about 2 years, but after that, it was unfortunately just used for practice for other ships. It eventually was sunk to the bottom of the ocean. USS Texas, however, survived. They didn't use it for nuclear bomb testing. They did not use it for artillery testing. It's actually been retired. It now resides in Galveston, Texas, and there is a private Texas owner who owns the land or owns the ship, has it on a dry dock, and is actually repainting it, making sure everything looks nice and pretty, and actually go turn into a museum. So if anyone is interested, they can go to the USSTexas.org. They can make donations, and they can even see whenever the ship's going to be available for actually visiting as well.
Thank you.